Critical thinking is one of the most important skills humans can develop. It helps us evaluate information, notice bias, make sound decisions, and avoid being easily manipulated. When people stop thinking critically, the effects can spread through nearly every part of life, from personal choices and relationships to work, politics, and society as a whole. In a world overflowing with information, opinions, advertisements, and rapid social media content, the habit of questioning and analyzing is more important than ever. But what actually happens when that habit weakens? One of the first consequences of stopping critical thinking is the decline of independent judgment. Instead of evaluating claims based on evidence, a person may begin to accept ideas simply because they are familiar, emotionally appealing, or repeated often enough. This makes decision-making less thoughtful and more automatic. Without critical thinking, people may rely heavily on assumptions, habits, or the opinions of others. For example, someone might choose a product because of flashy advertising, rather than researching whether it is actually useful. In more serious cases, they might adopt political, health, or financial beliefs without checking facts. The result is a life shaped less by reason and more by influence. Critical thinking acts like a filter. It helps us detect when someone is trying to influence us unfairly. When that filter weakens, people become easier to manipulate. Advertisers, scammers, propagandists, and even manipulative individuals in personal relationships can exploit this vulnerability. A person who does not question what they hear may fall for misinformation, fake news, conspiracy theories, or emotional persuasion. They may also be more likely to trust authority figures blindly, even when those figures are wrong. This can lead to bad financial decisions, harmful health choices, or involvement in toxic groups and relationships. Manipulation does not always look obvious. Sometimes it comes through repetition, emotional pressure, selective facts, or social approval. Critical thinking provides resistance to these tactics. Without it, people are more likely to be led by whatever message is loudest or most persuasive in the moment. Everyday life requires decisions, both small and large. Should you take a job offer? Which news source is reliable? Is this investment safe? Is this relationship healthy? Critical thinking helps people weigh evidence, compare options, and consider consequences. When it is absent, decisions become more impulsive and less informed. Poor decision-making can show up in many areas. Someone may spend money unwisely because they did not consider long-term costs. They may ignore warning signs in a relationship because they focused only on what they wanted to believe. They may make unhealthy lifestyle choices because they accepted advice without checking whether it was trustworthy. Over time, these mistakes can build into serious problems. The danger is not only in making one bad choice, but in developing a pattern of bad choices. Without reflection and analysis, mistakes are repeated rather than corrected. Critical thinking is closely tied to problem solving. When facing a challenge, a critical thinker asks, what is the problem? What caused it? What are the possible solutions? What evidence supports each option? When critical thinking stops, problem solving becomes shallow. People may react emotionally instead of thinking strategically. They may blame others, avoid responsibility, or look for the simplest answer even when the real issue is more complex. This can create frustration because problems remain unsolved or return in new forms. For instance, in a workplace, an employee who does not think critically may repeat the same mistake instead of investigating the cause. In family life, someone may misunderstand a conflict because they focus only on their own perspective. Critical thinking helps people move beyond reaction and toward resolution. Stopping critical thinking can also make people more emotionally vulnerable. When individuals accept ideas without examining them, they may become easily swept up by fear, outrage, excitement, or group pressure. This is because emotion begins to replace evaluation. Emotions are not bad. They are essential to human life. But when emotion is not balanced by critical thought, it can distort reality. Fear can make harmless situations seem dangerous. Anger can make people believe unverified accusations. Hope can make them cling to unrealistic promises. Without critical thinking, people may confuse intensity of feeling with truth. This cognitive vulnerability can also lead to stress and confusion. A person exposed to too much contradictory information without the ability to analyze it may feel overwhelmed. They may become anxious or cynical, unsure of what is real or trustworthy. Learning depends on curiosity, reflection, and the willingness to question assumptions. Critical thinking is what allows us to move beyond memorizing facts and toward understanding them. When critical thinking fades, learning becomes passive. Instead of asking, "Why is this true?" or "How does this work?" a person may simply accept information at face value. This limits intellectual growth. They may stop challenging themselves, stop improving their reasoning, and stop expanding their perspective. Over time, this can affect school performance, professional development, and personal insight. People who do not think critically may also struggle to change their minds when presented with new evidence. Rather than growing from correction, they may defend their current beliefs at all costs. This makes learning difficult because true learning requires openness to revision. Critical thinking is not only useful for solving abstract problems, it also supports healthy relationships. It helps people understand others fairly, interpret communication carefully, and avoid jumping to conclusions. Without it, misunderstandings become more common. A person who stops thinking critically may assume the worst about a partner, friend, or colleague. They may believe rumors without verification or misread a situation because they failed to consider context. They may also become overly dependent on emotional reactions rather than thoughtful communication. In some cases, lack of critical thinking can lead to toxic relationship dynamics. People may ignore red flags, excuse harmful behavior, or stay in unhealthy situations because they refuse to examine the evidence honestly. On the other hand, someone may wrongly accuse others due to assumptions rather than facts. Both outcomes can damage trust and stability. The effects of reduced critical thinking extend beyond individuals. Societies depend on people who can evaluate public claims, question leaders, and participate responsibly in civic life. When critical thinking declines, misinformation spreads more easily, polarization increases, and public discourse becomes weaker. People who do not think critically may vote based on slogans rather than policy. They may share false information online without checking sources. They may support harmful policies because they appeal to fear or identity rather than evidence. In extreme cases, widespread lack of critical thinking can allow authoritarianism, corruption, and mass deception to take root. Democracy works best when citizens ask difficult questions, compare viewpoints, and demand accountability. Without those habits, public decisions become more vulnerable to manipulation by powerful interests. The good news is that critical thinking can be strengthened. It is not an inborn trait that some people have and others do not. It is a skill that can be practiced daily. Asking questions is a good place to start. Who says this? What evidence supports it? What might be missing? Are there other explanations? It also helps to slow down before reacting. Many mistakes happen because people respond too quickly to headlines, posts, or strong emotions. Taking time to verify information can prevent errors. Reading from multiple sources, especially sources with different viewpoints, can also improve judgment. Humility is another key part of critical thinking. No one knows everything. Being willing to say, "I might be wrong" or "I need more information," is not weakness. It is intellectual strength. The more open a person is to evidence, the better their thinking becomes. When people stop thinking critically, the consequences can be serious. They become easier to manipulate, more likely to make poor decisions, less capable of solving problems, and more vulnerable to emotional and informational confusion. Their relationships may suffer, their learning may slow, and their role in society may become more passive and less informed. Critical thinking is not just an academic skill. It is a survival skill, a protection against deception, and a foundation for wise living. In a fast-moving world filled with competing claims and constant stimulation, the ability to pause, question, and evaluate is more valuable than ever. If you enjoyed this article and want to learn more about critical thinking, please visit https.areyouacriticalthinker.com for more articles.